In his last legislative session as governor, Wall Street-funded evildoer Rick Scott joined forces with the villainous House Speaker Richard Corporate Corcoran and Senate pushover President Joe Negron to pass some of the worst anti-worker pieces of legislation Florida has seen in decades. Floridians face the hard truth that even their most loyal public servants caved to their mounting pressure. But there was one force standing for truth and justice all session long that made their voices heard, their actions felt, and their battle cry ring through the halls of the Florida Capitol. Sunday!
Assemble, heroes, for your 2018 Legislative Update finale.
Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Cat. I'm always angry.
There's no sugarcoating it. The last week of legislative session was a brutal one for Florida's working families, with two of the biggest attacks up for their final votes at the beginning of the week. First up was the proposed constitutional amendment that would make it nearly impossible for future legislatures to close hundreds of millions of dollars in corporate tax loopholes and increase revenue for struggling state programs. HB 7001 would put on the ballot in November an amendment that, in order to remedy the revenue crisis in Florida, our legislators, who can barely agree on anything as it is, would need to pass bills with a 2/3 supermajority vote in both chambers. Senate Democrats had the votes to stop this terrible proposal, and several heroically spoke out in opposition.
This legislature would be constrained from raising funds to address critical priorities going into the future. But again, when it comes time, like this legislature does every year, to carve special interests out of the tax base with sales tax exemptions, et cetera, there would not be a heightened threshold. What that does over time is make our tax code more and more and more regressive.
And I'm just very, very fearful of the net impact on our communities if we don't have revenues. We struggle year in and year out to get the necessary dollars to provide all the services and support that our communities need.
When the vote finally hit the boards, however, Senator Tom Lee voted against the bill, giving us what we thought was a major victory. But in a surprise move, 3 Democratic legislators sided with Rick Scott and Speaker Corcoran and voted in favor of HB 7001.
Dude! What were you thinking?
This extremely right-wing proposal that has already bankrupted states like Kansas will now be on the ballot this November, and it's up to you, heroes, to vote against it. The backstabbing and drama didn't stop there, as soon after, the massive attack on public education and our teachers' right to negotiate for fair working conditions was brought up for a final vote. Thousands upon thousands of outraged Floridians burned up their legislators' phone lines this year in opposition to HB 7055, a bill that represents one of the biggest siphoning of taxpayer dollars from public to private schools in our state's history, and strips our teachers of their rights to have a voice on the job by eliminating their unions across Florida.
This is mean-spirited. This is a slap in the face. This is unwarranted because we already have a statute that addresses these concerns. When you combine all of the changes that are going into this bill in such a short period of time, and the fact that it's a slap in the face to our public school teachers, I ask that you vote down this bad, bad bill.
The evidence that this provision is more about politics than policy is that it doesn't make much sense. We do a lousy job, in my personal opinion, representing working class Floridians, and we should be ashamed of ourselves. It's seen as a slap in the face to the teachers of our state.
I think that this legislation is yet another attempt by this legislature to privatize, corporatize, and resegregate our public school systems. Like 7069, this rockets forward the privatization of public education.
I cannot vote for things that expand funding for charter schools while we're underfunding our traditional public schools. And I found the Form 990 tax form, return of organization exempt from income tax for Step Up for Students, Inc. And my jaw dropped. $521 million in contribution and grants. That this one charter school voucher organization has $500 million in revenues. Their salaries from 2014 to 2015 went up $2.5 million. While we're struggling to find revenue for our traditional public schools, we've got voucher service organizations that are paying their employees in excess of $11 million in salaries, charging millions and millions more in administrative fees, and they're sitting on $500 million. Why are we expanding these vouchers while we're starving our public schools?
To kill this bill, working families needed every Democratic senator and 4 courageous Republican legislators to stand up to Speaker Corcoran and vote no. 4 Republicans rose to the challenge and voted against this terrible legislation, due largely to the bullying tactics of the Speaker. But at the last minute, one Democrat was not on the floor to cast a vote, and one Democratic senator turned his back on our schools and teachers and voted yes, giving the bill the votes it needed for passage.
I'm going to support this bill, and I would suggest you give it your careful consideration.
Holy HB 7055 passed the Senate, was quickly sent back to the House for a procedural vote, and was signed into law by Governor Scott this week.
Holy heartbreak.
Floridians learned this hard truth the final week of session. Regardless of party affiliation, elections matter.
Elections are not won by polls, Commissioner. They're won by votes.
The only way to change this villainous imbalance of power tilted towards the wealthy, corporations, and the 1% in our state, we have to take action this November and vote for candidates who stand with the 99% of working Floridians who demand better and will hold them accountable.
We are going to move an agenda. We are going to be stronger than we've ever been before. And we are going to stay shoulder to shoulder with the AFL, because what they're trying to do to working class families across this state is just unthinkable.
They think that's their process. They think it's their building. They think it's their house. Well, it's not. You're carrying the righteous message for working families and not the big corporations that want to see you go away. That's what this is all about. You own that process. You own that building. And we'll never let them take it over accordingly. So thank you for being here.
Our Working Families Lobby Corps union heroes who lobbied, marched, and fought back at the Capitol this past 9 weeks were fired up to take that message back home.
We need to flip the script. Our voice needs to be heard.
Talk to your legislators, call them, visit them at home, and then when November comes around, take a look at how they voted, and you make your decision then.
We will remember this November at the ballot box, and we ask each of you to participate and remember to get out and vote.
It's time that we clean the House and the Senate. We need to get out. We need to get candidates running in every race. We need to support pro-education candidates, pro-public education candidates, and make sure everybody votes this year.
And I saw quite a production out there, a lot of theater. But one thing is for sure, we need a different cast of characters next year.
I ask you to look back and find out who voted and how your representative voted or your senator voted, and hold them accountable this upcoming November election. Because we can't continue to have these kind of policies that are passed at this legislation with the support of people who's supposed to be representing the working family.
If they do not vote in our favor for labor, we need to make sure that we're not cutting them checks in the future.
If we can put you in, we can take you out at the same time. November's coming quickly. We know what you did, we know how you voted, and you will see how we voted.
Take the House and the Senate and show them what education's all about.
Remember, November, we need to vote, we need to change the faces up here for the working people in Florida.
I just want to implore young people to come out and show that young people can be politically active as well, and that the next generation is ready to take the torch and show that they care for working families across Florida.
You know, when you sometimes turn on the light in the kitchen and the cockroaches go scattering around, we are the light. Please join us.
2019, Working Family Lobby Corps. Mark your calendar, set the dates, do the ask with your local so you can participate.
Solidarity!
We want to thank the hundreds of thousands of heroes who viewed our legislative update series this session. Your enthusiasm, activism, and energy to share these updates with your friends and family are what can help us all become more informed about a process that too often feels inaccessible to working people. For a full rundown of the major bills we followed this session and to sign up for updates year-round, visit our website and stay tuned for more videos throughout 2018. Till next year, heroes, solidarity forever.
We are